start with the roll call.
All right, good evening, everybody. Chair Wertz.
Here.
Vice Chair Yant is absent this evening. Tony Bevel.
Here.
Dorian Leibel.
Here.
Lori Zwingli is not here at this time, and Diane Foster. Here. All right, great, thank you.
All right, first on our list is approval of the minutes. Does anybody have any comments, corrections? All right, we'll take a motion to approve.
Anyone? Make a motion, we approve minutes of the last meeting.
Okay, Tony made the motion. Someone second?
Second.
All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And nobody's opposed. Okay. We'll move on to business. So the open position update is our first on the list.
Yeah, so that's been open since August. Just recently, I've had a couple inquiries about it, but as of right now, we have nobody that put in for it. So if you know anyone that's interested, get the word out because we still have that opening.
All right. I'm curious. Do you feel like it's known that this committee exists is known in the community?
So the phone calls that I've received, yeah, they've heard about it. I explained to them what it's about and what we do, and tell them to apply, but they don't. So I don't know if I scare them off or it sounds like people know about it. So I don't know why no one's applying.
So is the only way they find out about it through Facebook or what other media?
It was on our webpage, on the city's webpage. Angie might know more where we post that.
So yeah, it is on our city webpage. It's also on the police department's page on the city website, and I put it on Facebook and Nextdoor too. So you guys are welcome if you find those links on any of those pages. Feel free to share those onto your page, onto your social media pages, if you want to, just to kind of help get the word out a little bit more. But those are pretty much the main places that we get the word out. So
Call me old-fashioned, but I mean, are there bulletin boards around where you can just, simply put a little notice card or maybe a larger poster up?
Maybe at Sherwood Library or something.
yeah, we could do that. That's a good idea. Yeah, I can put something up at the library.
Maybe as crazy as it sounds, maybe some of the, more frequented places like Clancy's or yeah, you get my message.
Yeah. We'll definitely work on some other ways, but if you guys know of anybody, that helps too. So.
What about the Sherwood Gazette? We get that in the mail all the time, and read it. If that goes out to a lot of people, that might be useful. I just don't know if it would cost these days to put that in there.
Yeah. We also have the city puts out a newsletter called the Archer.
Yep.
So we could put it in there because we have another edition coming up in the next couple months. So I'll see if we can get something in there as well.
I shouldn't be shy about, not a tiny one.
Really big. All right, great ideas. Thank you.
All right, so next on the list is the November meeting, canceling for Thanksgiving. I think we did that last year too. Fell on Thanksgiving.
Yeah, we looked at some other dates, but they conflict with other meetings and such. So I think it'd just be best and try to, instead of trying to cram a meeting in before Thanksgiving, just to cancel it for November.
Yeah, it makes sense to me. Do we need to do anything just other than kind of nod here and
Yep.
everybody okay with that?
Yes, sir.
All right, so on to item C there, the 2021 report.
So that's the SWOT report. If you guys remembered from last year, except Dorian wasn't here. It's the strengths and weaknesses, objectives and such. Angie sent that out to everyone last year's. So we need to put this year's together to give to city council. Maybe Diane can help since her board has already done that, I believe, is the rumor I heard. So if she could probably give some good input on filling ours out for this year. So
Yeah, that's true. So we have already done these for a few years for the police advisory board. I've sat in on one meeting on this board, so I don't know that I have a lot of specific feedback as far as what you all have done in 2021. But basically we usually in each area for the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats, we, like you did last year, it looks like we set very, bullet point specific, but to the point sort of overviews is the way that we've addressed it on the police board, and then try to highlight sort of what we also want to do going forward.
So is the goal today to try and fill this out?
yes.
So I don't know, Tony or Dorn, if you guys had any chance to kind of think about that ahead of time. I came up with one for each of these categories. I could share my thoughts, but it probably won't be enough to complete it. Let me just go and
Just go.
other people can share as we go. Okay, so on strengths, I thought a strength was that we consistently met. This is, I think, just our second year. We consistently met and regularly heard and addressed citizen initiated requests or issues. I feel like that's something to that could be considered a strength. And then a weakness. We're still working through the process, I think, to make it as efficient as possible and streamlined. And then another weakness is that it seems like maybe people don't know that we exist. So when they have issues, they don't know that they can bring their issue up with this group. And these weaknesses obviously can be turned into opportunities as well. So more education and outreach to help people know where they can make their voice heard. A threat I just put down after talking about not having anybody that wants to join the group. So a lack of interest or knowledge in this group, either on similar to that opportunity that I just described, or I think, as people cycle out, if there's not more interest in people coming back in, then the group could kind of fizzle out. And then accomplishments. I thought that the lighting improvement at Sunset and Lad Hill was a top one in my mind. And then the crosswalk improvements at, I can't remember the street crossing over by the high school or the new middle school, the middle school now. There was that crosswalk. I could look it up and figure out exactly which one it was, but the ADA ramp improvement and striping and stuff. Thought those were two big decisions that got made that improved safety. And then the third one for me was process. improving. I think we did it. We still have room to grow, but I think that we improved the process quite a bit this last year.
Good. So do you have any goals for this year or the upcoming year?
Oh, I didn't get that far on it.
Do you guys have an idea? I mean, I know you have the tracking list that you work from, but do you have an idea of how many then you maybe have closed out or at least moved forward? It would be kind of interesting in your accomplishments to say, like you highlighted two really big things, but even to give other people in the room who are going to hear about these reports or who are shared these reports, you know, how many different items are you guys addressing in a year? Might be kind of interesting. As far as accomplishments, you know, it looks like, again, just being new to these meetings, it looks like you guys are addressing a lot of different issues over the last 2 years. So it would be nice to kind of put numbers to that, I guess, to say, you know, we've looked at this many different complaints or concerns.
Good one.
I think one strength that we really do have, where you know, a willingness to look at every complaint, every concern, and put everything, all efforts into, you know, getting some sort of a reasonable correction or a reasonable, reasonable correction.
This is kind of a goal, but I don't know that it's in our control. So I'm not sure if it warrants put down here, but I'd like to get back to in-person meetings. We can sit side by side and people can come.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like that as well.
That could be one of our goals for next year.
Well, what really is stopping us now? The city saying that we can't have in-person meetings?
Correct. All the meetings so far are through Teams.
So is this coming down from state down to city?
Pretty much. Yeah. As soon as we get the word, we can open it up and have in-person meetings. We definitely will.
So
Go ahead.
Sorry, is there any pushback from the city saying, hey, we'd really like to have some in-person meetings? I mean, here we're a small group. I mean, we've got a lot of room to have a lot of room.
I can reach out to the city manager and see what his input is. And
I can chime in on that a little bit. I know part of the issue is that you can't meet without wearing masks, or I think, and or verifying vaccination status. And so the city, because these are open to the public, we don't want to be having to check everybody, you know, people that are coming. We don't want to have to check their vaccination status. It just makes it very awkward and challenging. So, and also I know that the council doesn't, I've heard that the council doesn't like the idea of having to wear the masks during the meeting. It just doesn't make, you know, they'd rather be able to see people's faces and interact, even if it's virtually, versus having the masks on in the meeting. So I think there's a variety of reasons for that. And that said, as Captain Carlson said, we do have a new city manager. Things may have a slightly different look, and so it might be worth it to have additional conversations going forward.
Diane, you mentioned kind of listing a number, a number of how many things we've addressed. I feel like that'd be good to show. I feel like the number of issues that I think people have with traffic safety throughout the city, the we should be, I would think that we would be seeing a lot more. So I still think the numbers that we're seeing are really low. And I think that's either because people don't know how to bring an issue, or their preference is to complain in other ways. I don't know. There could be other reasons too, but that, I don't know. That kind of just resonated in all the different categories as a weakness and an opportunity and a goal, is to just get more exposure and try to get people to bring their issues to the group so that we can try and do something about them.
I kind of had another idea on weaknesses. I was thinking in just listening at the last meeting, and a lot of the resolutions are future capital improvement plans, which is great. And I understand why, of course, money, budget, timeline. But sometimes, you know, as far as the community members are concerned, maybe it's not on their timeline. And so I guess I would say, and I don't know if that's a weakness that we can control, but, you know, again, for a meeting, sometimes the weakness might be that a complaint or a concern is in a capital improvement plan that maybe is, you know, multiple years out. And so again, not something we can control, but as far as the way maybe the community members see it, if it's a really big concern for them, because it looks like we might even have one of those that we are discussing tonight that looks like it might be in a capital improvement plan that's going to be, you know, a little ways out. So it was just, it made me think that, you know, sometimes we might not be able to bring resolution to our community members as fast as they hoped. And that doesn't mean that you guys or we are not doing our jobs. It's just, it a little bit is what it is with the timeline.
How are we looking? What do we need more of? Any of these categories?
How about some opportunities? We got one that I have written down.
I feel like we might have an opportunity with some of the social media platforms, because a lot of people, they vent on Facebook or Nextdoor when they see issues with traffic or signals or whatever it happens to be. And it might be a good opportunity for us to sort of monitor that. And when we see things like that, possibly make a, you know, a post suggesting that they, you know, get in touch with the traffic safety committee and put their complaint formally in there, that for something we can look at and just kind of get it out that way as well. Because like you guys say, they don't really know about us, but we know about us. And we see the same things, you know, on these social media sites. So perhaps we could be proactive that way ourselves.
Anything else for opportunities? What about threats? We got one under threats. We could use some from last year too.
You could repeat not able to please everyone.
Yeah.
And probably the funding one, even I would imagine both of those carry over probably from year to year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the old one of challenges due to pandemic, it's starting to become like the other way around now. We're having more challenges due to the end of the pandemic. A lot more, everyone's back in school and it's a little more chaotic, and that's kind of posing some challenges by itself.
Anybody else have anything for the significant accomplishments? We already have 4.
Did we get all the traffic safety yard signs distributed? That was our goal last year.
No, we still have quite a few.
Darn.
So what's our goals for next year?
Let the citizens of Sherwood know, hey, the committee is here. We're looking for work. We want to help bring concerns forward. We want to help, accomplish something. I guess in other words, let people know we are here, that the Sherwood Traffic Safety Committee is here. Bring the problems, and we will help to try and solve them or work on them.
I think a goal could be to increase the number of issues and complaints that we receive and process. I think it's pretty clear from everybody's feedback that there's a lot of safety issues. So I don't think the lack of it, just because we're not getting them, doesn't mean there's not issues out there. So.
Pretty decent list. Anybody else with anything to add?
When does this have to be reported?
Angie, can you tell us that?
We have to have it to the city recorder by December 1st.
So we have time to work on it.
Except we're not meeting in November. So if you want to add anything, you'll just have to shoot us an email.
We can put together a draft and then email it to everybody. Just when you reply, just be sure to not reply all. And then we can get it finalized that way.
I like that. That work for everybody?
Yep.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, we good? Ready to move on? So anything on the tracking sheet anybody has questions or comments on before we dive into the specifics? All right, well, let's get started with 2020-012.
That was recommended to move forward with the street light at the corner, additional street light at Sunset and Lad Hill. So I wrote that up and sent that off to the city manager for approval. And that's where it's at right now. So I'm just waiting to hear back from him and Public Works for a timeline. So that's where that one's at.
That funding come through the traffic safeties. It's not our budget, but the budget that was for that. Or is it something else?
It's a good question. I don't know if our budget will cover all that. once city manager gives the final okay, I can talk to Public Works Director and kind of figure that out and get back to you guys on the funding.
All right, that's good news.
Yep.
All right, so let's move on to 2021-004, unless anybody else has any comments on that one.
So that was the request for truncated domes at the senior center entrance. And it was decided to go forward with Public Works and see if they can make the adjustment and just paint, get some lines across the street. So that was forwarded to Public Works. They have it now, and I'm just waiting to hear back on a timeline. This isn't really the type of weather to be putting down paint. So once I hear back from Public Works on when they're going to have that done, I will forward that on to you all.
All right. We'll move on to 005, 21-05.
That's the request for a stop sign, speed bumps, and/or crosswalk on Old Highway 99 and Crooked River. And I believe Bob was going to do some data gathering. Bob, has any follow-up on that one?
The request was put out there that we can't do it in-house because of the PED crossing count. That has to be done from a consultant firm, and a request needs to be made for the city manager to dedicate funds to that. So that needs to go to the city manager to approve.
So is that something you want me to do, Bob?
Either or, I don't care. You deal with Public Works, you can deal with the city manager. I think that's easy enough.
All right,
I'm kicking it over to you, John.
that's fine. I'll send a request over to him.
Yeah.
All right. So then the next one's 21-006.
It's the no parking zone between Hosler Way and the YMC entrance. And I believe Bob was going to gather some data on that one also.
All right, and I haven't gotten to it yet.
And then that's pending also request for painting. So once that data comes in, I can ship that out to Public Works to see if they can get that painted, that crosswalk at Hosler.
All right. Cruising right along. 21-007.
Speed bump modification, Division Street between Snyder Park entrance and Cut Hill Place. And Bob did have that survey done, the speed survey, and was sent out to everyone. Did everyone have a chance to look at that?
Yeah.
I've got one correction. I did a typo in there. Let me pull up my doc here. Where is it? It's on page 2. Fourth paragraph down. It says for counters numbers 1 and 2, those should be counters 2 and 3 because it's bracketing the cushion and it's describing how the cushion is responding. So that was a typo on my part. Too many 1s and 2s, 1s and 3s, 2s and 4s, blah, blah, blah. Confusing an engineer with numbers. Is there any questions about the findings?
I'm curious how this speed hump came about on Division, because I don't know, I'm still scratching my head on top of a hill, a fairly steep hill,
The
almost to the
speed
top.
cushion, I can answer that, Tony, very easily. The speed cushion, there used to be a speed bump at that point many, many years ago. And over the years, it got worn down or taken out or whatever. There was parts of it and overlays. It didn't exist for a time, but some of the striping, you could still see some of the striping, which indicated it was there. And we were asked to just replace it, so we did. We checked with our
As part of the pavement project on Division Street. So when
correct.
Public Works was doing that project, the request was to put back what was there, but the speed bump wasn't remotely within our standards, and so the speed cushion was put in.
Correct. We did have DKS, our traffic engineering consultant, look at the location, and they said if you're going to put it anywhere up there, that would be the appropriate place. So we basically put it back where it was, based on that communication.
So I'm curious here, in your report, it says this is a very low trip count and is on par for a neighborhood road classification. I mean, if it's a low trip count, why, I mean, how did it come about to be put there in the first place?
I don't
think
know.
that was before our time, Tony.
Yeah.
And really, the question of the Traffic Safety Committee is, the comment and the request that we got, that we put forth to you is the comment. Sorry, my dog. The comment was that they didn't feel that it was sufficiently slowing traffic, and that a different either design or more speed bumps were necessary, speed cushions, sorry. And so the question to you is, with this information, do you feel that the city should do anything more than what has been currently done?
At that location?
Correct. Or I guess in the vicinity on Division Street in that general area.
A very
And you have to look at the, this is Bob. Please reference the traffic count report, because it gives you some specific data on just what the speeds are, not just at the cushion, but up and down the hill on either side. So that's why I did the analysis the way I did, was to try and capture what traffic is actually doing around that hill. Are they coming off the hill too fast? Are they going up the hill too fast? Generally speaking, I would say a lot of people, the majority, 90% plus, are staying within a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit. I don't think the police will ever ticket anybody in town within a 25-mile-an-hour zone that is doing 30, if it's not specifically like in a school zone or downtown. They just aren't going to do it. So that's why I looked at the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, and 95% of the people are basically adhering to that speed limit. There's a few outliers on the lower parts of the hill, but that's basically either people, taking a running start going up the hill, or basically cruising down the hill and just picking up speed going down the hill. But the question is, by the counts, the number of people doing that, is it excessive that would warrant something else? And I don't see it in the numbers. That's part of my finding.
Seems perfectly reasonable to me.
I agree. I don't see that there's any need for any action.
It's good data, Bob.
Well, we've had a lot of questions over the years about this. And I finally said, well, how can we do this to basically try and answer everybody's, questions, what they perceive, what they see, what they think, and try and provide data that basically says any particular week, and this is over a week, what's it really doing? It's not specific to an event. There was no special events going on, no holidays. It was just a regular weekend, regular school week, and we're done. I think it answers the question, a couple of questions. Number one is that most of the traffic that is using Division Street is not commuter cut-through traffic. Otherwise, the numbers would be much higher. It's generally, basically, the people that live there are using that roadway system. And that means that the people who are speeding are most likely local residents, if they do speed. And the data for that 1 week period shows that most of them are not speeding. It may look fast, but it's within a reasonable range around 25-mile-an-hour posted speed limit. I think Captain Carlson would have to weigh in on my comment about whether or not the police department would actually ticket somebody who's doing, within 5 miles over the speed limit. I don't have if it was an engineer, you'd probably say, yeah, if you did 26, you'd get a ticket. But, I'm not reasonable in a lot of ways.
Yeah, definitely low traffic counts when you're looking at maybe 15, 20 cars an hour on average.
Well, if you're talking 400 and some odd both directions in one day, 200 in one direction spread out over a 24-hour period of time. Yeah, I think you're going to see that it's going to be high around commute times, people going to and from work, to and from home for school, whatever. And then it drops off significantly throughout the day.
So I guess it comes down to how do you reach those local residents that are speeding in this area? I mean,
That's a good question, Tony. I have always said and firmly believe that is driver habit. And how do you change driver habit?
So one thing that would be interesting to look at, not us, but maybe if somebody with staff wanted to look at it a little bit closer. When I worked for the city of Newburgh, we did a same thing, speed study on a particular street, and it was a 35-mile-an-hour street, I believe. Someone was going 55, and that 55-mile-an-hour trip showed up every day at the exact same time. And so we pulled that out of the traffic data and gave it to police, and they went and sat there at that time, and sure enough, here he comes, and person got a ticket. So if there's outliers, you might actually be able to pull some of that out of some of your data and address it head on.
It could, if it's showing up that way consistently throughout the 7 days we've been there, or at least 5 days, which would be a work week. Yeah, you could probably do it. I know that when we were setting out the traffic counters, I had a Ford F-250 white lifted that went through that area and went through over the traffic cushion. They were doing a good clip, and it really didn't even make a difference to the vehicle. That's the hard part, is that a lot of the SUVs that you're dealing with now, they have such good shock absorption, wheel travel, that a cushion really, they won't even notice it, and they will pick up speed. But I think that is an outlier. I think this data shows me that even with those type of vehicles available, most of the drivers, most of the residents of that area tend to follow the traffic laws fairly well. which is commendable as far as I'm concerned.
All right, so if anybody has more discussion, feel free. If someone wants to make a motion, I think this would be an all right time for that.
Motion, anyone?
Do we, sorry, just because this is my second meeting, do we move to close it out, or what is the next step? I guess that's my question. What are we motioning? Are we motioning to close it out and then somebody provides the requester with this report, or?
So if you look at the issue form that comes through, I'm trying to find an example. There's decisions, responses that are on the back. It's not within the scope of the TSC. It's not within the purview. Forward to staff for additional input. Or you could just, the motion could be that, you know, it's not an issue and no action, close out that agenda item. So I don't know. I don't know that anybody's been super formal or consistent with how we've done it, but in this particular situation, I would think that we would make a decision to not do anything, and then to close the agenda or close the item.
And then to close out sort of, and this might be more of a staff question, but then to close out the original response to that maybe community member, or I don't know in this case if it was more than one community member, I guess, is this report then at least drawn to their attention, or how does that step of the process work?
You know, after the meeting, we always send them an email.
Okay.
With the link to this video, so if they want to see it and listen to it, they can.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
I would say we make a motion to accept the city engineer's speed study as sufficient and move to close 2021-007, that no further action is necessary.
I'll second.
All right, any discussion? Tony, you're lighting up, but I can't see you. Just want to make sure you're not trying to talk.
No, I'm
Okay.
good.
All right, all in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? None. All right. Thanks, Bob, for doing that study and kicking it out quickly. That was great.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we got a new one, 2021-008.
So this is at Timbrel at Sunset. It's the crossing there for the school. I don't have the original in front of me, but basically there's three parts to it. So two of them is outside our scope and would basically be for the school district, and that's to offer bus rides to kids that cross there. And number two, require crossing guards at that crossing. That's kind of outside of our scope. That's more of a school district thing, which will be forwarded to them. The third one, though, is install a push-to-walk flashing light. That's something that we could discuss. One thing with that intersection that is on the CIP for improvement, but I believe that's at least 5 years out, if I remember right. Bob did have a suggestion, is to maybe divide that up and make it into a smaller, more centralized a thing for just the flashing lights. But I'm just reading some notes here I got. Pedestrian crossing signal, like the one in front of Walmart, was about $80,000 to install. So that's going to be a consideration also.
So we had the same issue request come up. It was item 2020 or 20-003. And we made a decision. We denied the request and made the reason for the denial was because of the single lane roundabout that was in the CIP, which is that's what was referenced in the packet as well.
Correct.
I personally don't see any reason to come to a different conclusion at this point. I think the individual's request or issue is slightly different in that it's specific to a specific time dealing with the school. I think that they have a good idea of having the school help improve the safety during that time frame, and I like that you guys have forwarded that onto the school, and I hope that they are able to do something to improve safety while the project, wait is until the project's funded. Anyone else have thoughts?
I just have a quick question, and maybe this is for Bob, but with that roundabout, I guess with the new traffic flow or increased traffic flow that seems like it's going to the high school, does that change or could that potentially improve with that roundabout in that location?
I haven't thought about it, tell you the truth.
It's something I see every morning now. So once I saw this come up, I was like, oh, I wonder if that will help now with the flow of the backup that's all the way down Sunset, every morning.
I think the backup is not because of the roundabout or this intersection at Timberell. I think it's basically the stoplight at Sunset backing traffic up down the road through this thing. So if anything, the backup slows cars down going through this area and it becomes less of an issue for people to be able to cross because traffic isn't going anywhere during the commute time. So, that's neither here nor there, but that's what I see. I think what it really is more of a, how do we protect, what type of crossings do you guys, what is the crossing that the community would like to see? Generally speaking, because it's not just the school. If it's just the school, then maybe the school should be different. I don't know. But, what type of crossings do we want in the city? Do we want every single head crossing to be signalized, with flashing beacons and everything like that? Or, how does that all work? I think that is part of a more advanced project for turning that roundabout, turning that intersection into more of a roundabout. I think that lends itself to advancing that idea of getting some more advanced ped crossing, because a roundabout, the intent is to get cars going through there without stopping. So it might be, more prudent to keep it with the project. But again, that's a matter of timing and how that all works in the CIP process. I think we'd have to leave that back to, what I see as a city manager, city council, and their directives on what they want to do.
The only other alternative looking at this intersection that I could see would be to actually put stop signs here. Make this a stop like up by Woodhaven Park. It's far enough away from the signal at Sunset and 99 and far enough away from Woodhaven City Park, even though that would temporarily slow traffic down. It might be an option.
Might be.
And I just wanted to chime in, especially since we've got several newer members. One of the things that we've discussed, one of the things that we've discussed is through the CIP process, the capital improvement plan process, essentially taking the list of projects that come to you guys that are really CIP projects that you don't make recommendations on, like in the moment, taking those to you as we're starting our CIP process to have you chime in and give some prioritization, some input, so then we can forward that to council as they're making their CIP prioritization, and ultimately that will become part of the adopted CIP and part of the budget. So I just wanted to make sure, again, especially for the newer folks, that you kind of understand how that's playing, how the CIP is playing out with you guys in that process. So thoughts and input on those types of things like the stop signs and the as an interim, that might be something that comes out of that discussion as well.
All right. What do we want to do?
So are we saying this is out of our scope of, I don't want to use the word authority, but out of our scope? Pass it on.
I don't think it's out of our scope, but last time our recommendation was to do nothing because it's a project identified on the capital improvement program, and to let the issue be resolved through that project. That was our decision.
Sums it up.
And frankly, my thought is that this has come up several times to you guys, and so I would imagine that through the discussion that we have in the coming months about the CIP, that might be one of those things that you recommend to council to move up on the CIP. Right now, it's not funded, but that might be something that, based on the feedback you're getting, that you recommend that it be reprioritized to be done sooner rather than later. But we'll get to that when we have that conversation.
Yeah, I think when we get there, there's two things going on there. There's the vehicle traffic, and then there's the pedestrian crossings. And if there's not a vehicle traffic need for a roundabout, then for many, many years, then maybe there's a reason to do an interim pedestrian crossing improvement until that time that the vehicle traffic warrants a bigger project. But if the vehicle traffic is enough to warrant a roundabout or something like that, then you could do it. You could, wait to just do it all at the same time. And I imagine, you wouldn't know that unless you had current or recent enough traffic data, which is probably why that's pushed out as a roundabout, because I imagine the traffic data the forecasting didn't warrant it for a number of years. I guess what I'm saying is I wouldn't want to do a roundabout just to improve the pedestrian safety.
I would actually agree with that. Just seeing now the way the roundabout works heading to the high school, I would argue that doesn't necessarily improve the high schoolers that are crossing the street there in the mornings, at least from what I've seen. So I'm just not sure that, is addressing. I'm not saying whether or not we should close or not close it out, but I'm not sure that addresses this concern of the pedestrian concern.
All right, Does anybody want to make a motion on this one?
Anyone?
It's a tough one to really say. I mean, in my mind, I feel like we could probably help to accomplish something, but at the same time, there's not much we can actually do as the Traffic Safety Committee. So I don't know.
I think the motion could be to acknowledge, to agree and acknowledge that the issue is valid and that and that we refer the solution to the capital program and request that the city prioritize it in the future.
Prioritize the intersection or
That capital project.
that capital project in particular of making it a roundabout? More than 5 years down the road?
I think as part of any CIP project, the first step will be some updated study to find out what the needs are. We're not going to build something based on our TSP from, years ago without any new information and knowledge. So I think the first step would probably be an updated study, and then we would determine what specifically should be designed based on the current and projected traffic data. Bob, would you agree with that statement?
I think that's a very solid recommendation for it. We need to do some background updates on our TSP project, that particular project definition, to see if it still holds water, if it's still accurate, because things have changed. It could be that, when we put the TSP together, we didn't really anticipate the high school being located on the opposite side of Highway 99 off of Sunset, which it changes the way the dynamics of the system operate. So I would say that would be one of the first things that we could do would be to get an update on the impact of that system modeling so that we have a better understanding of what the needs are for the area.
I have a question. Bob, how are pedestrians counted on a traffic study?
Usually what we have, I know what it was done like traditionally, but now they've gone very high tech. What they do is they install a camera and they do ped counts based on a video over time. So they can run the clock forward very quickly and count all the peds. It's still a counting process to say what's the density of the crossings, when do they occur, what's the time frame, and how many during a time frame. That's usually how you determine whether signal warrants for pedestrian crossings are actually met. Is you get actual data that says you've got a lot of people crossing at this point and warrants putting in a ped crossing. And I suspect that that's exactly what we would also have to do as part of the data gathering would be to do an analysis that would include that data gathering for ped crossing.
So right now that project was listed at beyond 5 years, I believe. Is that correct? In the prioritization?
It's not a near-term project, no.
It's not on the 5-year CIP.
No, it's somewhere between the 5-15. I can't imagine it being over 15. I would have to go back into what was sent out via email to look at what the, hold on a second, let me pull it up. Angie sent that in, and let's see if he had it with the, he presented the whole thing with his complaint. Let's see, it's a low priority, new expansion, council goals. Basically, that's low priority is actually 20 years plus. That's the way these, the way I set this up was high priority is less than 5 years. That's what gets on the 5-year CIP list is high priority projects. Your medium priority projects, 5 to 15, low priority, 20 years plus, or 15 years, 20 years plus. So it's out there ways according to how it was set up. However, I get that's predicated on a analysis of a system that did not include having the high school located on the opposite side of the highway at the intersection of Sunset Corridor area. So, you know, this whole prioritization based on what the traffic modeling was showing from 2015, which is actually just, that was based on even older data. I don't know if it's even accurate to that respect. I think it needs to be reviewed and reanalyzed and brought up to speed before we could actually say, yeah, it's still good for a 5 to 15 year, or nah, we got to boost it to a 5-year. I mean, some of that is, you know, we have to do some work to be able to provide a recommendation to council. I think that's, Julia, do you agree with that? I think you do.
Yeah.
I think what the TSC can do is offer support for at least putting this into a process to advance it in their eyes, the council's eyes, for doing this process. That's as far as I think you could take it.
Could we recommend the updated study and evaluation of the intersection that was done in the TSP based on current conditions that are different?
Julia, I don't know if they could actually recommend that they do it, but they could recommend support for at least considering having that process included.
Yeah, I mean, I think that you guys can certainly make that recommendation, and then we can discuss with the city manager whether or not that's something we can fund now, and or whether or not that's something that we incorporate into the upcoming budget process. And that's kind of what I mean when we come back to you prior to development of the CIP, we're going to look for these kinds of recommendations from you, and then, you know, we'll put forth some stuff and the city manager might tweak some things, and ultimately the council will have the final say in what moves forward. But I don't think it would hurt for you to make that recommendation now. That doesn't mean it's going to happen if we don't have the funds and the resources to make that happen this fiscal year. But I think making that support known is fine. And then if we aren't able to make that happen this fiscal year, then at the very least you can make that recommendation when we talk about the CIP for next fiscal year. Does that make sense?
That makes sense. Seems like a good way to go. It'd be us trying to do something rather than just kick the can. Tony, Dorian, Diane, Ari, what do you guys think?
Yeah, make the recommendation for sure. Let's do what we can anyways.
Agreed, yes.
Agreed.
Okay, somebody wants to form that into a motion? Wrap this one up.
Go ahead.
So we are asking that this be moved to the city council to be moved up on the CIP. Is that basically?
I think what I heard you asking for, and obviously correct me if I'm wrong, was that you're recommending that staff utilize some resources to do some additional analysis and study to identify what needs to happen. And then the results of which might be moved up on the CIP. Is that what I heard?
Yeah.
So I think then in this case, is our motion then just for our recommendation or our support in gathering more data in a traffic ped study that's more updated than that was last performed, to then sort of consider next steps? I don't know if that's a formal motion, but that's what it seems like that we're saying.
Beautiful.
I would say that what you're asking for is more site specific, project specific. I don't think you want to do a whole update of the TSP at this time, but you can recommend that this one project be reviewed and determined if at least a portion of it is viable for funding through the CIP process.
You were close, Diane. You want to give it another shot?
I mean, not really, but I will. Why is everybody looking at me? No, I'm just kidding. I'll make a motion then at 2021-008 that we revisit this specific site capital improvement plan, and that we consider the possible collection by staff of more updated traffic and pedestrian analysis as the staff or city or council decides. And then we can revisit it, then as a group collectively once we have that data. I would assume that is the next step of that.
Sounds good.
I would second that.
Okay, anybody want to discuss?
So it will not be closed out.
We could close it if we feel that's appropriate. We could leave it open until such time that there's some feedback from staff as to what direction they might want to take.
I think that would be appropriate.
All right. So all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 And any opposed? All right. Well, that wraps up the issues and complaints section. So committee comments is next. Anybody have any off agenda items they wanted to bring up?
I have a question. The rubber speed cushions, are they moved on not a regular basis, on a as need basis to places that do need some control? Or once they're there, they're there?
I don't think unless Bob or Julia, we have rubber bumps in the city that I'm aware of.
No, we don't. I know they're out there, Tony. I know that there are products out there that are speed cushions that are rubberized, that are made for temporary use, and then you pick them up and put them someplace else. That's not what we're geared for with what we have adopted. We've adopted permanent installations of traffic control devices, not, I don't know how the other ones, how that would work in our system. It'd almost be like putting up the speed trailer and it's movable. That's not part of what we've done. We've sort of looked at it from, at least in my group, is here's the permanent installation that doesn't need to be moved, because as soon as you put it down, then the traffic control is permanent to that space, to that area. I'm not sure what you would gain by doing the other way around. That would be a different program, probably not involving engineering as much as involving PD and public works. I don't have a good answer for that.
I was just
I'd have to look at how those systems are used in other places, and I'm not sure where they would be used. So there would be a lot of fact checking to see how that's all done.
Anybody else?
There's going to be a lot of traffic coming down Elwert because of the construction going on Roy Rogers up by Borchers, probably for a while. So actually yesterday I was caught in that coming up to the signal there, and it was probably half a mile long just because of all the detouring. They have Roy Rogers at Sherwood closed during the day right now. So you have to divert down Sherwood and turn left on Elwert and go around. So it backs it up quite far. I don't know if everyone's aware of that, but definitely causing some messes there. Just want to make everybody also aware that the westbound on Edie does have a no turn on red. I've been seeing a lot of chatter about that. They took out a big tree there, and a lot of people are still complaining they have no line of sight to be able to turn, and everyone needs to just understand that they're not supposed to turn when that's red. There's a no turn on red there, basically making it illegal to turn when it's red. So I wish more people would actually see that. It's a nice big sign right next to the signal there. But so continuing issues with that little signal.
All right, if nobody else has anything, citizen comments next. Do we have any?
I don't believe we have any.
No, we don't have any tonight.
All right, if there's nothing else for the meeting, we can adjourn.
Have a happy Thanksgiving, all of you.